Welcome back, everybody. I hope you've managed to charge your batteries a bit during the break, had a bite, and you are ready to start the second part of our Saturday's session. One that was brought to life with our partner, Creative Conscious. As we were talking during the first part, we definitely see a need for a broader and more meaningful collaboration within the creative and design community or industry in general. So for SDFF2020, that was the core of the mission, building bridges. And we are glad to be partnering up with amazing individuals and organizations in order to catalyze positive change. So without further ado, let me introduce Chrissy Levett, the founder of Creative Conscious, an organization that inspires, trains, and rewards creatives to apply their talents to socially valuable projects promoting sustainability, freedom, social health, and well-being. Welcome, Chrissy. It's really great to have you in this room. I would love to mention that I met Chrissy through yet another organization called She Says, and I'm absolutely grateful for that. Apart from Chrissy, we have also two amazing young talents in our digital room. We want to promote their amazing projects within a bit bigger format that we've started 2 years ago called Lightning Talks. Please welcome Gabriel Corbett, who has designed Oikos, a platform aimed at empowering social housing residents. He will tell us a bit more about it in a second. And the second speaker is going to be Tom Cornwell, a designer who has created Sneakerama, a sustainable shoe leasing service. So without further ado, I am giving the stage to Chrissy. Welcome, Chrissy.
Oh, thank you so much, Emma, and all the team. I think I want to ape what Rob said about the dedication and the love of design, service design, and all your amazing work. This, if you don't know her, she's an amazing woman, does amazing things, all of her own back, and a lot of it in her own time. So thank you so much. Right, we're very grateful actually to be in the room today. So it's brilliant, always brilliant to be able to share this stuff. So Creative Conscience, yeah, I'm going to gallop through things because we don't have much time. Just going to actually reduce that so I can see the screen. Great. It's not working. Click on it. Yeah, so we're going to talk about what we do, Creative Conscience does, and then I want to dispel 3 false beliefs to you guys. The first one is the world's screwed and there's not a lot we can do about it. The second one is that we are powerless and can't make impact. And the last one is I can't do what I love and change things for the better. And then if it's okay with you guys, if we have permission, we'd also like to tell you about a free workshop and an impact course that we run and how we could connect to each other. So if you have any questions, please stick them in the chat for either myself or Gabriella or Tom, and I'm sure we will have time at the end to answer any of those questions, so thank you. So here, let's go for it. Well, why we do what we do is because basically, if we don't stand for something, it's very easy for us to fall for anything. And there's a lot of stuff going on in the world right now, and we do it as an organization because it's loads of fun, because we give a fig, and because when you work on purpose-driven projects, it makes you feel better. It gives you a better sense of self-esteem and mental health and well-being, and we have the data to prove that if you don't believe us. What we do is we inspire, train, reward creative thinkers to apply their talents to socially valuable projects promoting sustainability, freedom, social health, and well-being. And we call ourselves positive creative activists.
Conscience, our behaviour, actions and words, an opportunity to fight for what is deserved. We represent our kind because we care. We speak up because things ain't fair. We are many with many more to come. Creativity is an opportunity to get good things done. A chance where we have full-blown capacity to aid, comfort and restore a bit of humanity. But things don't change if we look the other way. So let's raise our voice and say what we've got to say. Because if we all stay silent, it all stays the same. I can't live with that. Could you live with that, Blaine?
So that's what we do. We are positive creative activists, and we are all about creating impact in the world. We're not about hot air and talking heads. Since we launched in 2012, we've inspired and engaged more than 4,000 creative projects from more than 75 nationalities. And at the heart of every single one of those design and creative projects has been this idea of social and environmental impact. How we do it through education, inspiring, rewarding. We have a huge community and we actually build impact, which we're very, very proud of. So just to dispel a couple of myths, if you might have some, I know I've felt this in the past, that the world's pretty screwed and there's not much we can do about it. Well, I'd just like to tell you, we can all change the world, every single one of us. And it's really about every choice that we make, from who we bank with, what we eat, or if we choose to use our creative talents to make a difference. And if you feel like the world's screwed, I suggest you look at an amazing project. You might already know about it, called Project Drawdown from Paul Hawkins. It's really, really inspiring. And he said that if we believe we are screwed, it stops innovation, it stops creativity, and that's exactly what we need right now to get our world back on track and to save our beautiful planet. So I'm going to show you this film. It's a bit of a clunky animation. It's a piece of service design that won an award a few years ago, but because they engaged with us as an organisation, they got their first round of fundings. This is Rowan and Rob. And this project is alive to this day. So when they produced it, they were graduates just coming out of university. I'll run this was their first presentation. I'll run it.
As our population continues to rise, food and material waste management is an ever-growing problem. WRAP estimates a third of all food produced ends up as waste, and the UK furniture sector disposes or incinerates over 140,000 tonnes of MDF a year. So what happens if you group these two ever-growing problems together? Introducing Chipsboard. Chipsboard is made using the waste potato peelings created from food processing as an alternative to toxic materials including MDF and chipboard. We collect the peelings from manufacturers and put them through a few refinement processes before manufacture into robust boards. These can then be processed into an array of products, furniture, and other applications. Our production is self-contained as it moves from farm to kitchen to factory, makers, and then consumers. Once the products reach the end of their lifespan, they can be sent to industrial compost ready to become fertilizer back at the farm. This ability to biodegrade products rather than incinerate or send them to landfill will help revolutionize the sustainability of flat pack furniture and pop-up events.
Brilliant project. It exists in the world today because of creative conscience. So the second thing is, I'm powerless and I can't create real impact. I'm not capable. And this is where I'd like to introduce Gabriel's amazing project. Gabriel sent us his project this year as part of our award scheme. We continue to support him. We're very grateful to you, Gabriel, for using your talent to make a difference. I'm going to run your film, and obviously you're going to talk about this project after I finish speaking.
On the 14th of June 2017, a fire broke out in Grenfell Tower, West London, and took the lives of 72 people. This tragedy, a consequence of a dysfunctional social housing management system, was preventable. Concerns were raised, concerns were ignored. People's lives were neglected. We have a system that takes 8 months on average for a concern to be investigated. We have a system that leads 48% of families who reported an issue to feel ignored. We have a system that forces 1 in 10 people to raise a concern more than 10 times for it to be resolved. The truth is, we have a system that allows many communities living in social homes to be neglected. And while the same system is now dealing with a national housing crisis, we need to make sure that our existing social houses are not forgotten. We need local authorities to be kept accountable for their social housing management. Residents need to be empowered. And our way to do this is through information. It's called Oikos. If we look at the current process to raise a concern, it starts with residents connecting to the local authority's website and entering the information about the concern. This information, which should be available to all, disappears from the public eye and ends up only with the local authority, creating a fertile ground for unaccountability on their behalf. Oikos is here to reclaim this information and make it as impactful as possible. Let's take a look at a new process to raise a concern, where this time residents connect to the Oikos platform. All they have to do is fill in a form just like they would on the local authority's website. But our platform does more than just communicate this information to the authority. We start by enriching it with associated claims and regulations. We further repackage the data to feed it back to the next residents who want to raise a concern, allowing them to see what issues were previously raised across the area. It helps them build stronger cases by amassing voices with similar issues while protecting the identity of residents and keeping each data point anonymous. This information will also be used to build local reports of the social housing management condition in the area. By presenting information such as the total concerns raised during different periods of time, or the buildings with the most concerns, we can determine the effectiveness of each local authority's management, as well as identify buildings and homes at risk of being a danger for residents. Oikos then sends these reports to independent housing organisations that could support residents and bring more attention to a situation when needed. Finally, Oikos is also here to support improvement. We will invite local authorities to be part of the conversation and give them new and insightful data that could help them improve certain aspects of their system. The need for this platform is now urgent. 5 million households have experienced a problem with their home in the last 3 years. More than half of social tenants say they don't trust the government to keep them safe in their homes. For all these people, we have created Oikos to empower social housing residents.
Brilliant, absolutely brilliant project, and we're going to hear more from Gabriel in a little while. I should say, I've told Gabriel that I live in a flat that the lease is owned by the council, and I have absolutely first-hand experience of what you're talking about, Gabriel. I've had to go through a complaints process that absolutely failed me. Obviously not to the extent of what happened at Grenfell, but this stuff is not working. So brilliant, brilliant project. Just lastly, this thing about that I can't do what I love and make a difference and even make some money. I just wanted to end on this one project because it's just so much fun. Betty, who created this project for our platform, went on to have her work shown across a massive British festival, and she created this because of the amount of plastic waste that was not recycled. Not that recycling is the answer. I don't want anyone here to think that it isn't. We have to stop using plastics. But it was just a great project and an example of how you can use what you love, like fun and music and things like that, to get a message out. It's not really a service design project, but it's a lot of fun. So here's Betty's project to make some
I don't have to tell you things are bad. Everybody knows things are bad. You know, the air is unfit to breathe. Our food is unfit to eat. And most of the programs, I don't want you to ride. I wouldn't want to tell you to ride. All I know is that first, you bust to get back. I want all of you to read up now, you go to the window, open it, you stick your head out and yell, I was mad as hell, but I'm not going to take this anymore. Get up out of your chairs, open the window, stick your head out and yell, and say, I was mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore.
Nasty noise there. So, you know, I just wanted to say that because Betty sent her, that was just her film, there was a whole load of material and system and stuff that went behind it. But we as an organisation make, excuse my language, shit happen. And as I said, this, her film and this project was launched on the main stage at Cannes Festival last summer, and was seen by thousands and thousands of people. So, you know, it's everything is up for grabs, everything is possible. And I think I'll go back to Chris's point, and I think Rob mentioned this in the last session about collaboration. We can only really make a massive difference in the world if we are willing to collaborate. And as service designers, we know it is all about joining the dots. So you guys know, I don't want to go on about that. It is about taking actions. In this present time, I love using this quote because a lot of people are in fear. They're in fear because of uncertainty. And there's an amazing Stanford economist called Paul Romer who said, a crisis is a terrible thing to waste. This is not time for us as creatives and designers to sit in fear. It's absolutely time for us to take action. And if you, like AO, is working for a business that doesn't care about things that you care about, you can do a side hustle, you can create projects that really, really do that if you're passionate and believe in it. So I'd like, if I have permission, to ask you if any of you are serious about changing the world, and warning, this is not for the faint-hearted, that we are running a workshop called Creative Change Makers on Wednesday. It's absolutely free. I'll put the link in the chat. And we also have an social impact course, which is a 3-month course. 100% of the funds for that go back into Creative Conscience, which is a charity. And in 3 months, you will build an impact project. That's what we guarantee. And we have had amazing results. So thank you so much for listening. I'd also just like to say, if you feel overwhelmed by a lot of the stuff you're hearing today and the sort of idea of social and environmental impact, I'd like to just end on this quote from Martin Luther King. He said, take the first step in faith. If you don't have to see the whole staircase, just take the first step. So don't worry, just do something, take action, do something to make a difference. Thank you so much for being in the room, especially today. I mean, I don't know what it's like if you're from different parts of the world, but here in London, it's absolutely beautiful. So we're super, super grateful. And I'm going to pass you on right now to Gabriel and then Tom. So let me exit that. Let me stop my screen share. I think someone's already done it.
Oh, good. Yeah, good to go.
Thank you, guys.
We're good. Hi, everyone. I'm Gab. Thanks, Chrissy, for this, and thanks for the introduction as well. I think, you know, if I'm going to talk about this project, the most interesting thing I can talk about is the sort of pre-concept and all the research that went into it to sort of find this direction or this or this mission. So I'm going to start by sharing my screen. Yep. Okay. So yeah, what I want to talk about, like I said, is all the research that went into the why. So, you know, when you want to use a creative approach to solve a problem that is in such a political environment, it's vital to deeply understand the context you're in, because, well, anything that's sort of superficial in a way has just no chance of surviving in this environment. And that's why when you want to tackle those problems, before you start looking for an idea or a solution, it's really important to look for mission. So when I started this project, my only ambition was to find a way to support the Grenfell community and the movement they're leading to stop another tragedy like Grenfell to happen. So having grew up in the area, Grenfell, it's always been a subject of conversation between me and my friends over the years. And I just decided that, I wanted to see if I could do anything to help in a way. So the project did not start with any particular design practice in mind. It only started with an investigation into what happened in order to identify a space for creative approach to live in this political environment again. So if I go through all this quickly, I first started by just looking at everything and anything that was related to the Grenfell subject. And then from this, I started to categorize some of those things. So with, for example, similar stories to what happened to Grenfell that led to no real changes, responsible parties being completely disconnected from the communities that rely on them, or even landlords taking decisions that are criminally irresponsible, if I may say, or in order to just not being called on their poor management. I've been able to sort of diagnose the first symptoms of a systemic neglect in social housing. And so obviously to understand this better, I had to look deeper into the system, and in order to understand where things were going wrong and what authorized this disregard towards social housing communities to happen. So I had to understand the key housing regulations and decisions that failed the Grenfell community and led to the fire. And then what I did is I've assembled all the reports made by Grenfell residents prior to the fire about fire safety issues, with a focus on renovations and the cladding, just showing how much this sort of tragedy was foreseeable. I think there's one thing in particular that I'd like to read here is this message from the Grenfell Action Group that was 6 months before the fire, and it just shows how much residents have tried and how much they wouldn't just not listen to it, they didn't have a voice. And that message on the Grenfell Action Group, which is a blog by Grenfell residents, is it is a truly terrifying thought, but the Grenfell Action Group firmly believe that only a catastrophic event will expose the inaptitude and incompetence of our landlord, the Kensington and Chelsea Tenant Management Organization, and bring an end to the dangerous living condition and neglect of health and safety legislation that inflict upon the tenant and leaseholders. It is a conviction that a serious fire in a tower block or similar high-density residential property is the most likely reason that those who wield power at the KCTMO will be found out and brought to justice. Again, this is, it's awful to think that was 6 months before the fire, and to just have a feel of, how neglected those residents were feeling. So the next part was to look into the KCTMO and understand, well, how did the sort of system became so dysfunctional. So the KCTMO is the tenant management organization, that's responsible for Grenfell. And if we look at the way it was created and structured, it was structured for managing only a few blocks just a few blocks of estates, but ended up being responsible for more than 10,000 households in the borough, which made it the biggest TMO in the UK. And so this system that was just not meant to function on such a large scale, in order to keep it functional here, what the council did is that they did two things. First, they decided to set really low KPIs, which are the key performance indicator. And then they allowed the TMO to basically self-assess and self-regulate themselves so that they would never be caught on their poor housing management. Essentially, what the council did here is they created the perfect environment for an accountability. So if we look at all this, by looking at the behaviors from the community and the administration, there's two insights that we can identify here. First, there's an important participation from the community when it comes to raising their concerns. And second, we just do not have any effective system to keep responsible parties accountable of how they respond to those concerns. So from those insights, we're able to identify a problem. I'm saying a problem because there's a bigger problem here, which is this political and even ethical problem when it comes to the priorities of the people responsible for Grenfell. But our focus is just, our focus could not be on changing those people. The focus needs to be on stopping them from taking decisions that would put communities in danger. So with that said, the problem that we've identified is that after indicating how much was known and shared ahead of the fire, we can identify the problem as a problem of information not getting purchased amongst a range of parties, including those responsible for the site and the lives of the residents accommodated there. So then I had to take a step back and look again at those two insights that we got from my investigation, and look at the precise part of this system in which those two insights coexist. And this part of the system is the process to raise a concern. So if we look at the current process to raise a concern, like we said in the video, we've got residents that connect to the local authority website and to the information, which is then sent to the local authority. However, this information is meant to be public, but by having this information only going to the local authority, it just disappears from the public eye and creates this perfect fertile ground for an accountability on the local authority's behalf. So this is when I realized that my space for creative approach was in the unveiling of this information. What we need to do is to get involved in this process of raising a concern and intercept the data that should be made public before it disappears. So by exposing this data, we can disrupt a system that basically relied on its complete lack of transparency to not be accountable of its action, or actually in this case, inactions. The way to do this is to build a platform that will be independent from the local authority, that will disclose any concerns raised from residents of social housing to the authorities responsible for them. So what that would do is, by making all this information accessible and public, we would create a sort of database that would force local authority that would pressure local authority into being responsible and take the necessary actions for the well-being and safety of the communities relying on them, because if they don't, well, they'll be exposed. So now at this point, you guys are probably able to sort of connect the process to the concept video that you've seen earlier. So once I got to this point, I came to the realization that the system I used, the system I was sort of investigating by the Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea, was the same system used by every social housing community in the UK. And this was game changer, because suddenly it means that what started as a small case study and initiative to help a sort of smaller community was now something that could work for every social housing community in the UK. And so yeah, this is how this project sort of grew to the scale which it is today. So now, to develop the project, what I did is that I would present my idea to institutions such as Shelter, the homeless charity, or just other individual like Grenfell United or Justice for Grenfell, in order, just people with a lot more expertise about the issue, people that could essentially give me insightful feedback. And yeah, after months of discussion, we got to the project that you saw earlier. But what I want to do is to come back to my original point, which is, when you want to use a creative approach to solve a problem in such a political environment, it's vital to deeply understand the context you're in. When trying to understand the problem, when I was trying to understand the problem here, I had many opportunities that were almost felt more like traps for a design approach that would be potentially less impactful than what we have now. But I think what really worked here is that by treating design as a tool to help solving a problem, and really focus on practicality instead of trying to hierarchize the design approach unnecessarily, I think this subjective approach just allowed a better exploitation of the creative idea's potential. And I think that's the one lesson I would like to share here, is that there's humility in good design, and yeah, we need more of this, in my opinion. So yeah, I think that's all I have to share from this project. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope you thought that was interesting.
Thank you. Gabrielle, I think you've made an excellent point at the very end. Humility, this is something that we learn each day as designers, and we should always remember it. And thank you for putting a spotlight on that. This is certainly the good way to go. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Tom, are you ready to roll?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Cool.
Okay, so I just want to say, first of all, there's been some really great talks today, so it's really good to be like part of this. And so I'm a recent graphic design graduate from Arts University Bournemouth, and I'm going to be talking about my project, Sneakama. And basically the starting point of this project was, I was thinking, I was looking at sort of how we can like make fashion a more circular model. Currently with a lot of people, they buy a fashion item, they wear it, and then they either get rid of it or it just stays in the closet sort of thing. I kind of asked myself this question, and maybe all of you could think about it yourselves, like how many pairs of shoes do you actually own? And then how many pairs of shoes do you actually wear? And I asked this mainly because I found that there was, in 2018, there was 24.2 billion pairs of footwear made. And obviously that works out at about 3 pairs per person, like roughly a year. So there's obviously a massive quantity being produced. And I think that really became an issue and kind of a driving force of my project. So it was quantity, but also what they were being made out of. So you can see here, this is a shoe that I took apart. I got it from a charity shop, and I just started taking it apart, looking at some of the materials that were being used. And I was kind of shocked to find that not only how hard it was to actually take apart, but also the materials were so so stuck together and stuff like that, it would almost be impossible to recycle anyway, even with the materials obviously not being particularly sustainable. So I highlighted 2 key areas that I wanted my project to tackle. And the first one was challenging ownership. So in recent years, we've had this kind of shift from we buy stuff and we sort of own it. And examples like Spotify and Netflix, with music, we don't actually don't necessarily own the actual music, we just own the service that plays the music. And similarly with Netflix as well. And that kind of led me to start looking into different renting and leasing contracts. And obviously I thought about my mobile phone contract and how I pay a certain amount a month, and then once that ends, you can obviously, most of us now, we do keep our phones, but like originally the idea was that you'd send your phone back and then you get a new one. And that became like a real idea, and I thought about, could I do that with a fashion item, and would that work? So that's the main problem. And then the other problem was the actual materials that the shoe was being made out of, which I kind of referenced a second ago. With a lot of things like denim and leather having a really bad like carbon footprint, and the use of waste water in making denim and stuff like that, I started to think, what are the more sustainable materials, and what could we actually use that would be better materials and would serve the same purpose. And that led me to creating my sort of solution, which is Sneakama. And it's a sustainable shoe leasing service. And the basic idea is that you'd go through and you'd choose on this website interface, you choose what each part of the shoe was made out of. But similarly, I got the inspiration from Nike ID and that sort of thing, where you've got this customization.
Oh, it's Chrissy. Really sorry to interrupt. I don't know if it's just me or everyone else, but I can only see your first slide.
Yes. That's
okay.
that I was sending you on the private message.
Oh, sorry. Oh.
Pick up jumps in. So you just go to, is it in?
Switch off the sharing mode and start sharing once again.
Okay.
Yeah, and you can now make a full screen. Does it work? Are you? No, we can't see.
Yeah, hang on, let me try.
Okay.
Let me just try opening it again. Can you? Oh.
Okay.
Is it working now?
Yes, it worked.
Oh, okay.
Thank you so much.
Okay, shall I start again, or what? Shall I just sort of? I can briefly just show you some of the slides.
Just
Okay.
Just land where you finish. That's gonna be fine.
Okay. So yeah, this is me taking apart the shoe. I can understand. Yeah, it might be a bit confusing without the images, but yeah. So I kind of went through this process, challenging ownership and changing materials, and then yeah. So this is my final solution, which was the shoe leasing service. So the basic idea is that you'd have a contract for 6 to 12 months, and once you'd got the contract, you would wear the shoes, and then you'd send them back and be given a new pair. And the idea was that all the materials were staying in this system. And here's like the website interface, and showing some of the materials and how you could have this personalized kind of experience with it, and also learning about what each material, how it was made, and the actual process, like its carbon footprint, and like why it would be a better substitute of more traditional materials like leather and things like that. And here is just a quick render of like the actual shoe. Obviously, I'm not actually a fashion designer, I'm like a graphic designer, but I had to like create some kind of concept just to be able to show people like the idea. So here we see the sort of system of changing this like linear model of fashion to a more circular one. So you've got, you learn about the company, and then you get to design the shoe yourself, and then you're renting it for the 6 to 12 month period, and then you'd wear it. And then the change is obviously that once you've worn it, you'd send it back, and the materials stay in the cycle, and then they can then be recycled and then broke down and used again. And I kind of thought about some of the sort of the positives of this, and how like the impact it would have on the environment and like the world we live in. And the obvious one is the difference in like CO2 emissions and things like greenhouse gases, and how the process would hopefully be more it would be more sustainable, and also be a lot more done in a more natural way, with a lot more plant-based materials being made. But also it would be a big benefit for people that do like to stay current and stay up to date with fashion. I think it'd be a really great way to, like, if you often buy shoes or buy fashion items and you get bored of them really quickly, I think it'd be really good that you could get these new shoes every sort of 6 months or 12 months, and you'd sort of be able to keep within fashion trends, and Sneak Armour brand would sort of facilitate that and see what people are like really liking and sort of adjust to that. And then also the financial benefits, because obviously pairs of trainers and things like that, they are to the sort of higher end, like sort of £100 or whatever. With this, by paying monthly, you'd pay a small amount a month, and you wouldn't be wasting money on shoes that you don't necessarily get the full wear out of. And I think because you know that it's going to be a 6 or 12 month contract, you're more likely to think, oh, well, I haven't got them for that long, I'm actually going to wear them and make the use of them. And yeah, that's basically my whole concept. So yeah, if there's any questions, feel free to ask me them, and thank you.
Thank you so much, Tom. Thank you for your contribution to a greater change. I would love to, just give me a sec, I will just have a look at the chat. I wonder if anybody would love to share some questions. We are all now the panelists, so you can take the stand and ask it out loud. Otherwise, please use the Q&A panel. I will make sure to deliver it. Elaine is working on it. Give me a sec. Tom, can you stop sharing, please? So,
yeah.
Merci. Awesome. So, Elaine, let me find you Would you like to ask a question? Okay. I will unmute you. Give me a second. Ah, okay, maybe now. No. Oh, yes, here you are.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for those talks. They were amazing. This has been such an inspiring morning and afternoon now. That comment was actually Gabriel coming back to me saying he's working on a website, as I was asking if there was one. But in the absence of a website, how can we connect with you if we want to sort of talk about your project?
All right, thank you. So at the moment, we don't have anything, you know, functional in a way. The project just recently started to get supported by Creative Conscious, and we got an endorsement from Shelter and other people. So I'm now starting to pull a team together to sort of develop the project. But before it gets to the sort of functional stage, what we're doing, the sort of plan for months to come, is first to just do a sort of user experience development project. And then we will start a minimal viable product. So we would start working with one local authority, see the results, and then grow from here. Because this whole concept, the way it will function is that because the whole point is that the only product that we get out of the platform is data. And the whole point of the data is that it's accessible. So if we start to try to capitalize on it, it's only going to compromise its impact. So that's why we need to start small, become a non-profit, and create results, and from there find people that believe in the idea and want to fund it and see it in the whole of the UK. But I think, you know, we're working on it, but it's going to take a bit of time before we get to the point where there's a usable platform.
Yeah, and I mean, Gabriel, just to add to that, like it's that idea of joining the dots. It's like bringing the right people into the room, and to your, you know, credit, you've already got sort of Shelter on board and other organisations. And we had a conversation yesterday because I found out that through our community we can have a direct conversation with the Mayor of London, if you don't know who that is. And so it's all really about just being open with your ideas and brave and not and sharing, just share if you've got an idea. And the other thing I'd like to give you a shout out for is that you did this project pretty much during lockdown and from your dorm room. And I think a lot of us as designers think, as I'm a designer, well, I used to think, I don't anymore, oh, you know, I haven't got time, I've got a busy life, I've got family and mortgages and things like that. We can do so much as a side hustle. We can build stuff that we don't realise we can build. And you are an absolute testament to that. And also Tom, you know, obviously you're both studying, but it doesn't need to stop just because you're working for an organisation that doesn't necessarily care. And we have countless examples of that, like people who have actually changed the world through pure determination and working on side hustles. And it's very exciting and it's really hope-filled because we need lots of hope right now.
Oh, yes, once again, the rookie mistake. So wonder if there are any reflections or maybe comments among our lovely service design community. Somebody would like to share? Just going through the screens, have no hands risen. I would like to ask you both actually about the key pain points on your way to create those lovely projects. What were your key struggles and how did you manage to overcome those?
Shall I go first? Yeah.
Please.
I think the main one for me would have been, obviously coming from a graphic design background, I didn't have much prior knowledge to any sort of fashion design and the sort of like the processes that goes into like making fashion items. And I think I ended up having to sort of speak to a few like sustainable like fashion designers, and like it was quite helpful because of my being at an arts uni. I could like connect with those sort of people. So I think that was quite a challenge to actually to understand like the deeper side of what I was actually trying to do and why certain things wouldn't work, and how I could sort of adapt to that. So I think that was kind of what I overcame.
Okay. Thank you for that, Gabriel.
So very hard to say. In my case, so there's been so many technical challenges because this started in last September and so much has happened since. But one thing I would say that was really sort of scary, and it's it probably doesn't help the fact that actually I was, you know, I was doing all this by myself in a dorm room. But it's when I got to the point when I realized that actually if I really wanted to have the biggest impact possible, I had to build something that was going to sort of challenge and go against every local authority in the UK, which are, you know, super powerful people. And so me being just, you know, a kid in a dorm room, I'm like, is that really something I can do? It's a bit scary. And then I just done it in the end. But I think that was the biggest challenge. It was like, okay, am I ready to take on this challenge, or is it just not something I can do? So yeah, I think that was the hardest part. Ewa, are you still on mute?
I think it's, you know, it's that time when I start to do those things 3 hours in the digital room. Yeah, it's quite a long time. So we have a comment from Bhavani. So this is for you, Tom. I would love you to, I will share later some links to the service design community within the document that we are preparing after the session. But please, this is something that I say on behalf of my team, the Service Design Fringe team, as well as the whole community. If you find any obstacles on your road, don't hesitate to reach out. You know, if there is anything we could do for you, we will do our best to help out. And the second thing is there is yet another community, which is Service Design Days community. And building the bridges, we are working closely with them. So you will have an access to a even wider network of people. So they are also really helpful. And there is a Mighty Network platform. You can just pick up an issue that you have and discuss it with everybody. So that's a tiny bit of an offer on my side.
I'd like to say exactly the same thing. Like, if anyone wants any support or advice, we're here as a community to help you. If you want to make a difference, you can reach out to me personally through LinkedIn. I always say yes. And or you can write to just hello@creative-conscious.org.uk. And yeah, we're really grateful, super grateful that you all showed up, because obviously you care. Yeah. So just we're here as you know, as I mean, I see a familiar face. Daniel knows. Daniel's one of our champions. So yeah, it's brilliant to be here. Thank you so much for all of you for putting it together and showing up as well.
On that note, I would love to wrap up our last session, SDFF2020, with this idea that we should all keep our heads in the clouds, but stand firmly with one leg on the ground, and then everything is possible. Thank you so much, and I guess see you soon. Have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you.
Bye. So nice.
Thank you very much.
Well done, everyone.